6:47 in the morning, and Nora Hartley stands at the window of the Westside Children's Shelter with one eye swollen completely shut. Purple handprint bruises map her throat like a violent geography, each finger mark a separate agony. Her right arm rests in a makeshift sling fashioned from a torn bedsheet. She counts them again, her good eye tracking each suited figure through the early light. 30 men. 30 men in black arranged in a perfect perimeter around the building, their shoulders broad, their movements synchronized like a single organism trained to kill. The humidity clings to her skin. Her ribs scream with each shallow breath she takes. 12 hours ago, 3 men with fists like hammers had left her bleeding in an underground parking garage, and she had crawled through summer rain to find answers in the only place that might have them. Now this. An army at her doorstep. The lead man approaches the shelter entrance. He is tall, 6'2" at least, with salt and pepper hair swept back from a face carved from stone. His suit is charcoal gray, expensive beyond measure, tailored so perfectly it looks like it was stitched directly onto his body. A scar runs from his left eye to his cheekbone, thin and precise like a blade's edge. When he moves with the precision of a panther, each step measured, each gesture controlled. His watch catches the morning light. Gold. Real gold. She tastes copper blood from her split lip. The door to the shelter opens. Sister Margaret, who runs this place with the quiet authority of someone who has seen too much human suffering to be shocked by anything, stands in the doorway. She looks at the man. At the 30 men behind him. Her 70-year-old face shows no fear, only recognition of power acknowledging power. "We are closed to visitors," Sister Margaret says, her voice steady as a stone foundation. "I am not a visitor," the man says. His voice is deep and solid like an oath carved in granite. "My name is Luca Valenti. I need to speak with the woman who brought in a child 3 days ago. The child is mine." Sister Margaret does not move. "We have no record of any child being brought in 3 days ago." But she does. Nora knows this. She is standing 10 feet away, listening to every word, her heart hammering so hard against her damaged ribs that she thinks it might break through bone. 3 days earlier, everything had been different. Nora had been mopping the shelter's bathroom on the night shift, pushing the mop back and forth across dingy linoleum, her calloused hands gripping the wooden handle as if it were a lifeline. 32 years old, but looking decades older from the accumulation of small sorrows and large catastrophes. Her dark hair hung in a ponytail that had not been washed in 4 days. Her eyes were a pale brown, intelligent and careful, the eyes of someone who had learned to see danger coming from miles away. She had $34 in her pocket. That was everything. That was rent for the night at the motel on Figueroa Street, or food for 4 days if she was careful, or gas for the 1998 Honda Civic she slept in half the time anyway. The choices never changed. They only got harder. The bathroom door swung open, and that was when everything shifted. The child was sitting in the corner, her small body curled into itself like a question no one wanted to answer. She was 5 years old, maybe 6, with golden blonde hair matted with something dark that might have been dried blood. Her right arm bore bruises in the exact shape of adult fingers, and on her tiny wrist sat a diamond bracelet that probably cost more than everything Nora had ever owned. The girl was not crying. She was not making any sound at all. She was just sitting there, staring at nothing, her eyes glassy and distant like someone who had left her own body behind. "Hello," Nora whispered. The child did not respond. Nora knelt down slowly, her joints protesting, her own bruised knee screaming against the hard floor. She had learned a long time ago how to move around traumatized people. She had learned how to make herself small and unthreatening. How to ask permission with her eyes before asking with her mouth. "What is your name, sweetheart?" A long silence. Then, in a voice like wind through broken glass, the child said, "Emma." "That is a beautiful name." "I am Nora." "Can you tell me what happened to your arm, Emma?" The child looked at her arm as if seeing it for the first time. She did not seem to understand the question. She did not seem to understand much of anything except that the world had broken, and she was trapped in the pieces. Nora had made a choice in that moment. She could have called Child Protective Services. She could have done the official thing, filled out the forms, followed the protocol. The system would have shuffled the girl into the machinery of bureaucracy, and who knew where she would end up or how long it would take. She could have done the right thing. Instead, she had done the necessary thing. She had taken Emma's small hand and said, "Come with me. You are safe now. No one is going to hurt you again." She did not know if this was true. She only knew that it needed to be true, and sometimes faith and necessity are the same thing. She had smuggled the girl upstairs to the converted storage room where emergency overnight cases sometimes slept. She had washed the dried blood from Emma's golden hair and cleaned the bruises as gently as possible. She had found a clean shirt in the donation pile and dressed the girl in something soft. She had held Emma through the night while the girl trembled and occasionally whispered fragments of language that made no sense. Now it was 3 days later, and the most dangerous man in Los Angeles was downstairs telling Sister Margaret lies about who he was and why he was here. Nora moves away from the window. She moves toward the stairs. Her body screams with the movement. Every cell in her depleted, battered body is telling her to stay hidden, to protect herself, to remember that she is nobody and that nobody usually survives encounters with somebody. But Emma is upstairs in the converted storage room, sleeping under a quilt that smells like institutional detergent and hope. She descends the stairs. The lobby of the West Side Children's Shelter is small and worn, the beige walls water-stained from decades of Los Angeles summers. There is a desk where Sister Margaret conducts her daily miracles, a waiting area with chairs that have not been comfortable in 15 years, and a portrait of the Virgin Mary that Nora has always felt watching her with disappointment. Luca Valenti stands in the center of this humble space like a panther in a bird cage. Behind him, the 30 men wait with the patience of people trained to wait forever if necessary. 2 of them stand closest to him. One is thick-necked and scarred, with eyes like cold granite. The other is younger, olive-skinned, with the careful posture of someone who has learned to take up as little space as possible despite his considerable size. Both of them watch Nora descend the stairs, and both of them immediately exchange a look that changes something in their faces. Nora reaches the bottom of the stairs. She is 5'4". She weighs 118 pounds. She has $34 in her pocket and a photograph of her dead husband tucked inside her bra for reasons she no longer fully understands, except that losing it feels like losing the last proof that she was ever loved. She looks directly at Luca Valenti. "I do not know your daughter," she says. Her voice is trembling like a candle in the wind, but her good eye does not waver. "Whatever you think happened here, you are mistaken." The scarred man steps forward, but Valenti raises one hand. The movement is small. The effect is total. The scarred man becomes a statue. Valenti takes 3 steps toward Nora. She does not move. She does not run. She simply stands there, battered and broken and defiant, while a man whose shoes probably cost more than her monthly survival walks closer. "Where is she?" His voice is still that solid granite, but something has changed in it. Something has cracked. Nora does not answer. 3 blocks away, in a basement office of a warehouse that officially manufactures plumbing supplies but unofficially manufactures pain, a man named Douglas Hale is receiving a phone call. Hale is 58 years old, with a face like a collapsed fist and eyes that have seen too many secrets. He works for the kind of people who work for other people who answer only to themselves. The girl he is looking for, the blonde-haired child with the diamond bracelet, is supposed to be merchandise. She is supposed to be inventory. She is not supposed to be missing. When he learns that Luca Valenti has just assembled 30 men and descended upon the West Side Children's Shelter, Douglas Hale understands that his situation has become considerably more complicated. He puts down the phone. He picks up another one. The morning light fills the lobby of the shelter, and Nora Hartley faces the most powerful man in Los Angeles with nothing but her own small, wounded body between him and the child sleeping upstairs. She does not know that Emma is his daughter. She does not know that the girl was stolen years ago by his own brother and sold to traffickers. She does not know that Luca Valenti has spent the last 48 hours watching security footage from the shelter after finding a photograph of a small blonde girl posted on a community board by someone desperately asking for help identifying her. She only knows that this man is looking for Emma, and Emma is terrified, and nothing in the world will make her reveal where that child is hidden. "I want you to leave," Nora says. Luca Valenti smiles. It is not a kind expression. "Tell me you understand what you are protecting. Tell me you understand what these people do to children. Tell me you understand that by hiding her, you are condemning her." "I understand," Nora says, "that you are not the authorities, and I am not obligated to tell you anything." The scarred man steps forward again. This time, Valenti does not stop him. The scarred man, whose name is Enzo and who has been Valenti's lieutenant for 15 years, looks at Nora with something that might be respect or might be pity. It is difficult to tell the difference. "We can do this the easy way," Enzo says, "or we can do this the hard way." Behind them, the 30 men shift their weight. The sound is like the rustling of darkness itself. The shelter fills with a tension that tastes like copper and iron and endings. 3 days before Luca Valenti arrived at St. Catherine's shelter with 30 men and a question that would reshape everything, Nora Hartley sat in her Honda Civic with the engine off and the windows cracked open just enough to let the June heat escape. The parking lot behind the shelter on Pico Boulevard was mostly empty. 2 o'clock in the afternoon. The sun had turned the asphalt into something that shimmered and breathed, and Nora sat very still, counting the bills in her wallet one more time even though she already knew the answer. $34. That was everything. The bills were worn soft from handling, creased in places where worry had folded them. 2 20s, 1 10, 4 1s. She spread them across the steering wheel and stared at them like they might multiply if she looked long enough. They would not. Money did not work that way. Nothing worked that way anymore. She had been homeless for 8 months. 8 months of sleeping in this car, of showers at the shelter on days when Margaret, the director, was not paying attention, of meals that consisted of whatever the volunteers had not finished eating. 8 months since the hospital bills had come, since the number on the final notice had stopped making sense. $85,000. For cancer treatments that had not worked. For a husband who had died anyway, slowly, in a room that smelled like bleach and broken promises. The cracked photograph of Marcus sat on her dashboard in a frame so old the plastic had turned yellow. He was smiling in that picture, holding a fishing rod on some lake she could not remember the name of anymore. His hair was dark then. His eyes were bright. She did not let herself look at it very often because looking at it meant remembering, and remembering meant understanding that the man in the photograph would never hold her again, would never tell her that things would be okay, would never be okay himself. Nora opened the car door and stepped into the heat. It wrapped around her like something alive and hungry. She had one clean shirt left, purchased from a thrift store 3 months ago for $3. The blue had faded to the color of old denim, and there was a small stain near the collar that no amount of scrubbing would remove. She pulled off the shirt she had been wearing for 3 days and changed into the clean one, moving quickly because the parking lot was not entirely private and shame was something she still felt, even after 8 months. The staff bathroom inside the shelter was mercifully empty. Nora locked the door and filled the sink with water from the tap, then used the soap dispenser, the industrial kind that smelled like chemicals and necessity, to wash her hair. The water was tepid. She worked the soap through her dark blonde hair, remembering when Marcus had liked to run his fingers through it, remembering the life that had existed before hospitals and debt and this moment, hunched over a bathroom sink that belonged to a charity. She dried her hair with paper towels, patting it gently because the hand dryer had broken months ago. Her reflection in the mirror showed a woman of 28 who looked closer to 40. The exhaustion had carved itself into the space under her eyes. Her cheekbones had become sharp. Her skin had lost whatever softness it once possessed. She did not recognize herself anymore. Perhaps that was a mercy. Her backpack contained everything she owned. 2 shirts, the one she had just changed out of and another older one with a hole in the armpit. 1 pair of jeans. 7 pairs of underwear, all faded. A toothbrush. toothpaste, socks, the photograph of Marcus, a phone that had 14% battery remaining, even though she had not used it since yesterday. The battery died regardless. It was dying right now, probably, just sitting in her bag, leaking away its final charge into nothing. Margaret found her in the hallway at 2:30. The shelter's director was a woman in her 60s with grey hair she wore in a long braid and eyes that had witnessed too much human suffering to be shocked by anything anymore. She moved through the shelter like a ghost who had decided to stay haunted, helping where she could, accepting the limitations of her small grants and her smaller staff. "You're early today," Margaret said. "Needed to shower," Nora replied. It was not a lie. It was not the full truth either, but full truth had become a luxury. The kids in the back room are restless. Heat makes them wild. Could you spend some time with them? Nora nodded. This was the arrangement. She volunteered 6 days a week in exchange for shower access and 1 meal per day. Margaret never asked questions about where Nora slept. Margaret knew. Everyone who worked at the shelter knew. But the shelter existed in a world where many people had nowhere to go, and judging them for it seemed unnecessary. The back room held 12 children, ranging from infants to teenagers. They were arranged in various states of restlessness on cots and blankets. The heat had made the room feel like the inside of something's mouth. Nora sat down on the floor, and the children gathered around her without being asked. This was their ritual. She would sit. They would come. She would tell stories or sing songs or simply listen to them talk about the lives they had left behind or never had in the first place. A boy named Thomas, maybe 8 years old, with skin the color of dark wood and eyes that held too much knowledge, climbed into her lap. She held him. She did not speak. Sometimes holding was enough. At 4:47 in the afternoon, one of the older girls came into the back room and whispered something to Margaret. Margaret's expression shifted slightly. Not by much. She was practiced at keeping her face neutral. But Nora had lived among broken people long enough to read the small languages of concern. "There's someone in the women's bathroom," the girl said. I heard crying. The women's bathroom was off the main hallway, a small room with 2 toilet stalls and a sink that dripped constantly. Nora had been meaning to report the leak to someone, but reporting things required maintaining a presence at the shelter, and her presence was fragile and conditional. Margaret went first. Nora followed. The crying had stopped by the time they arrived. The bathroom was empty except for one thing: a small child, maybe 5 years old, was hiding behind the toilet in the corner stall. Her body was folded so tightly it seemed impossible she could fit into the space. Her hair was tangled, falling across her face in dark brown strands. And across her left arm, visible in the fluorescent light, was a bruise the size of a thumbprint. Nora crouched down slowly, moving like she was approaching a wounded animal. Because that was what the child was, in her way. Wounded. Terrified. Unable to trust anything that moved toward her. "Hey, sweetheart," Nora said, and her voice came out soft, the way she spoke to Thomas when his nightmares woke him. "I am Nora. Are you hurt?" The child did not speak. She simply stared, and in her staring was every bad thing that could happen to a person who had no one. Her dress was expensive, that much was clear immediately. The fabric was some kind of silk blend, pale pink, with small pearl buttons. The kind of dress that belonged to a child with money, with parents, with a life that made sense. The price tag had been cut out, ripped away so violently that the fabric had torn. No identifying information. No way to trace it. Around the child's right wrist was a bracelet. Diamond, Nora thought, though she had never owned anything valuable enough to know for certain. It caught the light and threw it back in small rainbows, and the entire thing felt obscene. This jewelry on a child's arm, a brand, a price tag. Nora pulled her phone from her pocket. 11% battery. She took a photograph of the bracelet, careful to frame it so the diamonds caught the light the same way they had caught it here, in this bathroom, in this moment. The child watched her do this without moving. I am going to stand up now, Nora said. And I am going to take you somewhere safe. Can you stand up? The child stood. She was thin, bird thin, like something that could blow away in any stiff wind. She took Nora's hand without being asked. Her palm was small and cold and trembling. Margaret was waiting in the hallway, her face doing that thing again where it carefully showed nothing at all. We should call DCFS, Margaret said quietly. Nora knew this was the right answer. Protocol. Procedure. The official pathway that existed for precisely this situation. But Nora had seen how the system worked. She had seen children wait in holding facilities for days while caseworkers tried to match them with overflowing group homes. She had seen how slowly the wheels turned, how many children fell through the spaces between one rotation and the next. She had also seen that this child was terrified of adults. Just tonight, Nora said. Let me keep her just tonight. Tomorrow we figure out who she is. Tomorrow we call whoever needs to be called. But tonight, she needs to feel safe. Margaret looked at Nora for a long moment. The director was not a woman who made exceptions. Exceptions required paperwork and liability and the kind of decision-making that could end your career. But Margaret was also a woman who had seen too much suffering to refuse a small kindness when it presented itself. The storage room upstairs, Margaret said finally. No one will look for her there. But Nora, if this goes wrong. It won't, Nora said, with a certainty she did not feel. She led Emma, that was the only name she had, whispered so quietly it might have been imagined, up the narrow stairs to the second floor. The storage room was cluttered with donations that had not yet been sorted, boxes of blankets, crates of clothes, a narrow cot in the corner that Margaret used sometimes when she had been at the shelter for too long and could not make it home. Nora cleared a space and made a bed from the softest blanket she could find. What is your name? She asked the child. Emma, the girl whispered. And how old are you, Emma? 5. Nora sat beside her. I need you to know something. You are safe now. No one is going to hurt you. Not while I am here. It was a promise she had no right making, a promise that could be broken by circumstances outside her control. But Emma needed to hear it, and Nora needed to say it, and sometimes the truth was less important than the kindness. The child fell asleep with her small hand gripping Nora's wrist. Hours passed. Nora did not move. She sat in the dark storage room while the afternoon became evening became night, and she did not let go. 3 miles away, in a hotel room on the other side of the city, a man named Douglas Hale was discovering that his merchandise had disappeared. His face, when he realized it, went through several stages. First confusion. Then anger. Then a kind of focus rage that made the other men in the room back slowly away from him. Douglas Hale was not particularly tall or impressive to look at. He was 56 years old, with graying hair and the kind of soft body that came from sitting behind desks while other people did the work. But his face, when it showed anger, became something monstrous. Because his anger was not the rage of a hot temper. It was the cold fury of someone who had never been disobeyed, and the realization that the world no longer worked the way he had always assumed it did. He made a phone call. Then another. By midnight, the search had begun. Every street, every shelter, every possible place a 5-year-old girl might hide was being checked by men who had no regard for the boundaries between legal and illegal, between mercy and violence. But Nora Hartley did not know this yet. She sat in the storage room holding a sleeping child, her phone now showing 0% battery, feeling for the first time in 8 months like she was protecting something that mattered more than her own survival. She did not know that the choice she had made in the bathroom would echo outward in ways that would reshape the entire structure of her life, bringing her face to face with the most dangerous man in Los Angeles and forcing her to choose, again and again, between what was safe and what was right. She only knew that Emma was breathing steadily now, that the bruise on her arm was already beginning to darken into something deeper, and that whatever came next, she would not let this child return to whatever darkness had marked her skin like that. Outside, the June heat had finally broken. Clouds were gathering in the distance, and the wind that moved through Los Angeles that night carried the scent of rain that would not fall, of change that was already arriving. The morning light filters through high windows as Luca Valenti stands motionless, watching the child sleep in his arms. Emma's small hand clutches a worn stuffed rabbit, her breathing steady and deep, innocent in a way that belongs to someone who has never known what was taken from her. 3 years. For 3 years, he had carried the weight of her absence like a stone lodged in his chest, believing her dead, murdered by his own blood. His brother Marco, whom he had trusted with everything, had stolen her for money. Sold her to Douglas Hale for $50,000 as if she were merchandise, as if she were not his daughter, not the reason he had built an empire in the first place. But she is breathing. She is alive. She is here. Nora Hartley wakes on the leather couch with the taste of blood still in her mouth and the memory of hands around her throat. Her left eye throbs beneath the bandage, her ribs wrapped so tightly she cannot take a full breath. The four in her arm delivers fluids and painkillers, a small mercy she has never known before. She tries to sit up. Pain shoots through her body like lightning. She gasps. Luca turns from the window, Emma still sleeping against his chest. His face is all sharp angles and controlled fury, but when his eyes find Nora's, something shifts. The anger does not disappear. It transforms into something else entirely. She is safe now, he says. His voice is deep and steady, like an oath carved in stone. Nora's throat is too damaged to speak clearly. She manages a whisper, "How long was I asleep?" 8 hours. Dr. Castellano patched you together. You have 3 cracked ribs, bruising across 40% of your body, and a concussion that could have killed you. Luca pauses, and his jaw tightens. You fought them. The doctor found defensive wounds on your hands. You fought them to protect a child you had known for 3 days. Nora does not respond. There is nothing to say. The choice was never complicated. Enzo enters through the steel door, a man with a scar running from his eye to his cheekbone, built like a mountain in an expensive suit. He stops when he sees Luca holding Emma, his boss's face transformed into something almost human. In 15 years of service, Enzo has never witnessed this. The legendary Luca Valenti, who ordered deaths with the same tone he used to order coffee, is cradling a sleeping child like she might shatter. "Boss," Enzo says quietly. "We have a problem." Douglas Hale has made a move. Luca does not look away from Emma's face. "Tell me." He hit St. Catherine's shelter 2 hours ago with 6 men. Margaret, the director, she is in the hospital. Broken arm, concussion. But the children, they were evacuated before he arrived. Our people got them out through the back. How did he know to move now? Pietro enters behind Enzo, sharp-dressed and precise, holding a tablet showing surveillance footage and financial records. "We found the connection, boss." Evelyn Blackwell. She owns 3 properties in the trafficking network. She has been brokering deals with Hale for 2 years. Luca finally looks away from Emma. When he speaks, his voice has changed. It is no longer the voice of a father. It is the voice of a man who built an empire on the bodies of those who crossed him. Evelyn Blackwell, he repeats. The name sounds like a threat. The philanthropist. She hosts charity galas, Pietro confirms. She sits on boards. Senators come to her parties. But underneath, she has been trafficking children for profit. High-end clients, international buyers. Emma was worth $2 million to her network. The words hang in the air like poison. Nora watches Luca's face go completely still. She has seen that expression once before, in the poker room, when she told him his daughter was alive. But this is different. This is the expression of someone who has found the source of his suffering and is deciding how to burn it down. Where is Hale now? Luca asks. Safe house in Koreatown, Enzo says. He is panicking. He knows by now that we have Emma. He is preparing to run. Then we do not let him run, Luca says. He carefully transfers Emma to a crib that has already been prepared in the corner of the office, the finest crib money can buy, surrounded by plush toys and soft blankets. He covers her with a cashmere blanket worth more than Nora's annual salary. He turns to Nora. His eyes meet hers, and she sees the father and the killer existing in the same body. "You asked me last night why I would help you," Lucas says. "Why I would protect someone I had never met. You told me you were nobody. Do you remember?" Nora nods slightly, her throat too damaged for speech. "I told you that you were not nobody. But I did not explain why I know this." Luca moves to the window, looking out at the city sprawling beneath the penthouse. His hands are clasped behind his back, each movement controlled with the precision of someone trained in violence. "When Emma was stolen from me, the police told me she was probably dead. They told me to accept it, to move forward, to stop wasting resources searching for a ghost. My own brother, Marco, told me she was gone. Everyone told me the same thing. That my daughter was nobody. That her life meant nothing." He turns back to face Nora. "But you knew better. You knew that a 5-year-old girl with bruises and a designer bracelet was somebody. You knew she was worth protecting, even when it cost you everything you had. That is not the behavior of nobody, Miss Hartley. That is the behavior of someone with a conscience, with courage, with a soul. The world has too few of those people. And I do not let the world hurt them." Before Nora can respond, alarms sound throughout the penthouse. Not fire alarms or security breaches, but communication alerts. Enzo and Pietro move immediately, hands on weapons, eyes on the monitors showing the building's perimeter. "We have incoming," Pietro says, his voice tight. "Federal agents. FBI. They are surrounding the building." The color drains from Luca's face. Not because he fears prison, he has contingencies for that. But because Emma is here. Because Nora is here, injured and vulnerable. They came for Hale, Enzo confirms, reading the communications traffic. He gave them information. He is testifying against Evelyn Blackwell in exchange for a deal. He is giving them everything: names, dates, accounts, the entire trafficking network. Luca moves to the crib, looking down at Emma's sleeping face. When he speaks, his voice is different again. Quieter. More dangerous. "Then we give them a gift," he says. "We give them Evelyn Blackwell. Wrapped in evidence so complete that there is no negotiation, no plea deal, no escape. And we give them Hale, but on our terms." He signals to Enzo and Pietro, "Get me every piece of documentation. Every transfer, every email, every photograph. Every child she sold. Every senator who visited her properties. Every judge who looked the other way. I want to destroy her so completely that her own mother will not recognize the name Blackwell in a year." Pietro is already moving, fingers flying across the tablet. "Boss, the FBI. We'll wait," Luca says. "Because what we are about to give them is worth more than anything they could possibly find themselves. A complete dismantling of a trafficking operation, all packaged for prosecution. They will get their case. And I will get what I need." The sound of helicopters circles above the building, their rotors cutting the air into pieces. Nora tries to stand, but her body refuses. Luca notices immediately. He approaches the couch and extends his hand. When she takes it, he pulls her carefully upright, supporting her weight against his side. "What do you need?" Nora asks, her voice barely audible. "I need you to understand something," Luca says. "When I walk out of this office in the next 5 minutes, I will be giving federal agents information that will destroy one of the most powerful women in Los Angeles. I will be dismantling a trafficking network. I will be saving hundreds of children whose locations we have identified. But I will also be crossing a line I have never crossed before. I will be cooperating with law enforcement. My men will see it as a betrayal of our code. Some of them may walk away." He pauses, his hand still supporting her. "I am doing this because Emma is alive, and because you chose her over safety. And because there is a part of me that has been dead for 3 years, and you somehow brought it back to life. So I need you to understand that your choice, 3 days ago in that bathroom, has consequences that ripple outward in ways you cannot yet comprehend. The helicopter sounds grow louder. The FBI is setting up perimeter, waiting for movement from inside the penthouse. Enzo appears in the doorway. The evidence is ready. We have 17 terabytes of documentation. Every transaction, every client, every location. Boss, this is enough to destroy her completely. Luca nods once. Then he looks back at Emma, sleeping peacefully in her crib, surrounded by luxury and love. He reaches down and brushes a strand of hair from her forehead. When he speaks again, his voice carries the weight of a man making a choice that will alter the structure of his entire empire. Tell the FBI we are coming out. Tell them we are bringing documentation on Evelyn Blackwell. Tell them to prepare to shut down 17 locations across 3 states. And tell them to prepare a protection detail. Because Nora Hartley is a witness, and Evelyn Blackwell has already tried to have her killed once. The sound of agents moving into position fills the silence. Helicopter blades cut the morning air. Down below, the city continues its blind rotation, unaware that in a penthouse above it, a choice has been made that will transform lives and destroy fortunes. The sun breaks over Los Angeles like a blade cutting through fog. 6:47 in the morning, and 30 men in black suits stand motionless outside St. Catherine's shelter, their dark eyes scanning every shadow, every parked car, every window. Inside, Nora Hartley stands at a window on the 2nd floor, watching them. Her left eye is swollen shut, the bruises on her throat mapping the exact shape of Douglas Hale's hands. Her ribs are wrapped so tight she cannot take a full breath without pain splitting her chest like lightning. She touches the bandage over her eye. The swelling has not gone down. It may never go down completely. $26 sits in her pocket. She counted it this morning 3 times, as if the number might change. $26 and a cracked photograph of Marcus, her husband, dead for years now, his face fading like a memory she cannot hold. Emma is downstairs with Luca. The child who was abandoned in a bathroom 3 days ago, the child Nora carried home instead of reporting to authorities, the child who asked this morning to see the shelter again because she wanted to show her father where Nora's work was. Luca will deny his daughter nothing. 3 years of searching, 3 years of believing his child was gone forever, and now she asks to visit a shelter, so he brings 30 armed men and stands in the parking lot like a general surveying a battlefield. Nora feels the full weight of it now. The impossibility. The crushing, suffocating impossibility. She has no home. No money beyond $26. No job that will take her with a swollen eye and bruised throat. The medical bills for Emma's trauma therapy, for her own injuries, for the tests that proved Emma had been starved and beaten, all of it will follow Nora forward like a shadow that refused to leave. $85,000 in debt, a number so large it has stopped feeling real. It feels like a death sentence. Marcus's photograph grows heavier in her pocket. She touches it through the fabric and thinks what she has thought every morning for 4 years: you were supposed to be here. You were supposed to help me carry this. The door opens behind her. Emma stands in the hallway, 6 years old with 2 old eyes, holding a stuffed rabbit Nora bought her 3 days ago. The child's voice is small, careful, built on the foundation of knowing that the people you love sometimes disappear. Nora? Are you leaving? Nora turns. The movement sends pain through her ribs. She crouches down anyway, ignoring the screaming in her chest, and looks directly into Emma's eyes. I am not leaving, sweetheart. I promise. Emma's small hand reaches out and touches the bandage on Nora's eye. Does it hurt? Yes. But it will feel better soon. Emma nods solemnly, as if she understands pain in a way most 6-year-olds do not. She reaches into her pocket and produces a crayon drawing, colors so intense they seem to vibrate, purple and blue and black, and in the middle, a thin green line. Colors for sad days, Emma says. When you feel sad, you look at this. My daddy says colors remember happy things. Nora takes the drawing. Her eyes burn. That promise, "I am not leaving," it changes everything. It anchors her to this moment, to this child, to a future she cannot yet see. Downstairs, Luca stands in the shelter's main room, watching staff members move around him with nervous energy. A man like him does not fit in a place built for the invisible. The contrast is impossible to ignore. His suit costs more than Nora made in 3 months. His shoes are Italian leather. A gold watch sits heavy on his wrist, the kind that carries the weight of a fortune. His men stand at each entrance, each window, each exit. A living fortress protecting his daughter. Enzo approaches with a tablet, his expression carved from stone. "Boss, we have the final documentation. Every transaction, every location." Hale is still at his apartment on Maple. Evelyn Blackwell has not moved from her penthouse. Luca nods once. He watches Emma's drawing, the one she made 3 days ago, still sitting on a shelf. A caregiver had framed it. Drawings by Emma, age 6, in careful handwriting. She had been 6 years old for only 3 days before finding her father. The FBI has eyes on Hale, Enzo continues. They are ready to move as soon as you say. Luca's jaw tightens. Not yet. Nora comes downstairs first. She needs to be away from this. "Boss." Enzo's voice carries a note Luca has not heard in all their years together, concern, mixed with something darker. "What you are about to do will save my daughter's life from the man who stole it. And will break every code I have ever lived by." Luca's voice is flat, final. "I know what I am doing, Enzo. I have known since the moment I found her bleeding in that parking garage. I crossed a line last night that can never be uncrossed. So yes, I am cooperating with law enforcement. Yes, my men will see it as betrayal. Some will walk away. But I am doing this because Emma is alive, because a woman I barely know chose her safety over everything, and because there is a part of me that has been dead for 3 years, and she somehow brought it back." Enzo absorbs this in silence. The kind of silence that comes when a man watches his entire world shift on its axis. "Get the protection detail ready for Nora," Luca says. "She will need it." Evelyn Blackwell does not take failure well. Once she realizes Hale is talking, once she understands that the FBI has the recordings and the emails, she will move fast. And she will want Nora dead before Nora can testify. The footsteps on the stairs announce Nora's arrival. She descends slowly, each step careful, protecting her ribs. Emma runs to her and takes her hand. "Daddy says we are leaving now. He says there are people coming to help." Luca watches Nora step into the main room. The morning light catches her bruised face, illuminates the violence done to her body. Something cold and dangerous stirs in his chest, a need to make sure that the men who did this understand that they have made a mistake. That they have touched something that belongs to him. "The protection detail will take you to a safe house," Luca says. His voice is soft but carries the weight of absolute authority. "2 agents from the FBI will be with you. You will give them everything you know about Evelyn Blackwell, about her operation, about Douglas Hale. You will be protected until this is over." "I don't understand," Nora says. "You will. In a few hours, Douglas Hale will be arrested. In a few hours after that, Evelyn Blackwell will be arrested as well. But what matters now is that you are safe." Nora looks at Emma, then back at Luca. "What about her? What about Emma?" "Emma goes with you. My daughter goes where you go. Is that acceptable?" The question hangs in the air like a held breath. Nora's eyes fill with tears, but she does not cry. She nods once. "Okay," she whispers. At 7 o'clock 3 black SUVs screech to a stop in front of the shelter. Douglas Hale exits the first vehicle with 6 armed men. Their hands rest on the bulges of weapons. Hale's face is flushed, angry, moving with the arrogance of a man who has never been told no. Luca's 30 men move like a machine. 12 form a perimeter around the building, 6 flank the entrance, 12 disappear to strategic positions on the shelter's roof. Enzo steps forward, his hand resting inside his jacket where his gun sits like a second heartbeat. "This is private property," Enzo says. "Leave." Hale sees the army and something shifts in his expression. Fear bleeds through the anger like ink through water. But he has cornered himself. Evelyn Blackwell's deadline is today, and he has promised delivery. "I have business inside. The girl belongs to my client. I need to secure what is mine." Luca emerges from the shelter, Emma in his arms. The temperature in the parking lot drops 10 degrees. "This is my daughter," Luca says. His voice is soft, deadly, the kind of soft that carries the weight of absolute certainty. "Stolen from my home 3 years ago. Sold to traffickers by my own brother. Cared for by a woman who had nothing but asked for nothing. Care to explain how she ended up in your custody?" Hale's confidence evaporates. His hand moves to his gun, and before the motion completes, 4 of Luca's men have weapons trained on his chest. "I would not," Luca says. Hale's hand falls away. He backs toward his SUV. "There has been a misunderstanding. I did not know." "You knew. You bought her from Marco. You sold her to others. You beat a defenseless woman last night because she protected a child." Luca's eyes burn like coals. "Tell me, Douglas. How does it feel to realize that you have made a mistake so profound, so complete, that no amount of money will save you?" Hale is sweating now, trembling. "Valenti, I can explain. I can make this right." Luca hands Emma to Enzo with gentleness that makes the child smile. Then he gives a single-hand signal with his left hand, and the world changes. 12 men in black move like ghosts from the shadows. Hale's 6 armed men are disarmed in under 30 seconds. Wrists broken, guns clatter to pavement, faces pressed into concrete. Hale tries to run. Pietro intercepts him with a clothesline that sends him sprawling backward, the wind knocked from his lungs. He scrambles backward on his hands, desperation bleeding through every motion. "Please. Please. I have money. I have access to offshore accounts. Whatever you want." Luca crouches in front of him. When he speaks, his voice is conversational, almost gentle. "You think I want your money? You trafficked human beings for profit. You stole my daughter from her home. You put your hands on a woman who was protecting a child who was not even hers. You beat her because she said no." Luca's eyes are empty, hollow, the eyes of a man who has made a decision that cannot be unmade. "No. That would be too easy. Too quick. Too merciful." Hale's face goes white as understanding floods through him. Luca stands, dust from the pavement falling from his expensive suit. He pulls out his phone and makes a call, voice crystal clear. "Special Agent Morrison? The trafficker you have been building a case against for 3 years is at St. Catherine's shelter on Pico Boulevard. I suggest you arrive quickly. I also suggest you bring a federal team. We have documentation. Everything you need to put him away for 40 years. In the distance, sirens begin to sing. Hale's face crumples. He tries to run again, but Pietro is faster. Within minutes, FBI vehicles surround the block. Agents in tactical gear move with precision, securing the area, securing Hale. Federal lights paint the parking lot in blue and red. Special Agent Morrison, a woman with sharp eyes and the bearing of someone who has spent years pursuing exactly this kind of case, approaches Luca. "We have been after him for 3 years, she says." "How did you?" "I protect what is mine," Luca says. "Consider this a gift to the city." At 8:15 in the morning, 42 miles away in a penthouse that overlooks the city, Evelyn Blackwell watches the news showing Douglas Hale's arrest. Her champagne flute is frozen halfway to her lips. Her hand shakes. On the screen, Hale is led out in handcuffs, his face broken, his body moving like a puppet with its strings cut. Her assistant bursts through the door. He is talking. Hale is giving them everything in exchange for a reduced sentence. Evelyn's composure cracks like fine china dropped from a great height. That is impossible. I covered every transaction. The paper trail was buried. He recorded your conversations. Over 3 years. Every negotiation. Every price. Every child sold. He has emails from your private account. The FBI is executing a search warrant on this building in 18 minutes. Evelyn moves. She has spent her life outrunning consequences. This time, she tries to run to Geneva, to a bank account that contains $300 million, to a private jet waiting at a private airfield. But Luca Valenti's reach extends further than she calculated. His men have friends in banking. Her accounts are frozen at 8:32. Her pilot receives a call at 8:35. His family is relocated to a nice house, very safe, very far away from the man who gave the order. By 8:43, the private jet is no longer available. At 8:47, federal agents arrive at her penthouse with search warrants and cameras rolling. News crews are already positioned outside, their cameras capturing every moment. Evelyn Blackwell is led out of her building in handcuffs, her tailored suit and salon-perfect hair illuminated by camera flashes that will be seen on every news station in the state. Reporters shout. Ms. Blackwell, is it true you operated an international trafficking network? Did you profit from selling children? Evelyn tries to maintain composure. This is a misunderstanding. My lawyers will clear this up by. Special Agent Morrison steps to the microphones. Evelyn Blackwell operated an illegal adoption agency that concealed an international trafficking network. We have recovered documentation of 17 children sold to foreign clients over 6 years. Total profit exceeded $30 million. She faces federal conspiracy charges, racketeering, human trafficking across state lines, wire fraud, and money laundering. Recommended sentence is 60 years. Evelyn's legs go out from under her. The cameras capture the exact moment her face crumples, the exact moment her fall from grace becomes absolute and irreversible. Her empire, built on the suffering of children, built on the exploitation of women, collapses in a single day. Not death, too quick, too easy, too merciful. But systematic destruction where the world watches. By evening news, her name is synonymous with evil. Her charity foundation dissolves. Her high society friends issue statements condemning her, denying they ever knew her. Every business she touches disintegrates. Every investment she held is frozen. Luca Valenti stands in a safe house 40 miles away, watching the news coverage on a television mounted on the wall. Emma sleeps in his lap. Nora sits beside him, her hand resting on his arm. Through the window, the Los Angeles skyline glitters with ordinary lights, unaware of the lives that have just been transformed, destroyed, or redeemed. Enzo enters quietly. It is done. Both of them in federal custody. The FBI is processing evidence now. Boss, they will want Nora to testify. Luca nods. He does not take his eyes off Emma. Nora will testify. And when this is over, when the trials are finished and the sentences are handed down, Nora will be free. Enzo hesitates. In 15 years, he has never seen Luca like this. And after? What happens after? Luca looks at Nora. She meets his eyes. Something unspoken passes between them, something that has been building since the moment he found her bleeding in that parking garage, since the moment she looked at a ruthless man and saw a father desperate for his child. After, Luca says softly, "We rebuild." The kitchen is flooded with Sunday morning light, the kind that makes everything feel forgiven. Luca Valenti stands at the counter in black slacks and an open white linen shirt, his chest bearing the faint scar that runs from collarbone to sternum, a map of wars fought long before Nora entered his world. He hums while pouring coffee into ceramic cups, his movements deliberate, controlled, nothing like the ruthless man who commanded 12 operatives in darkness. Emma sits at the marble counter doing third-grade math homework, her pencil moving with concentration, her small face furrowed in the way children do when numbers feel like secrets they must decode. Nora stands at the stove, flipping pancakes in a cast-iron skillet that belonged to Luca's mother, a domestic ritual that still feels impossible to her some mornings, that she gets to stand here, in sunlight, as if her life did not begin in a car with $34 and a prayer that nobody would find her. The smell of butter and vanilla fills the space like a blessing. Rain patters softly against the windows, the tail end of an October storm that blew through the city overnight, leaving everything washed clean. Enzo knocks twice on the kitchen door before entering, water still clinging to his black jacket. Pietro follows, both men freezing in the threshold like they have stumbled into a private world they were not supposed to witness. In 15 years of working for Luca Valenti, they have never seen this. The boss cooking. The boss humming. The woman who saved his daughter standing in his kitchen wearing one of his shirts, her dark hair loose, her face peaceful in a way that speaks of months of unbroken sleep and safety. The three of them, naturally, as though they have always been three instead of one. Pietro whispers to Enzo, "Is the boss humming?" Enzo watches Luca set down a plate of pancakes in front of Emma and squeeze Nora's shoulder as he passes, a touch that lasts 1 second longer than casual. That is what happens when you find your person. Emma looks up from her worksheet, her 7-year-old face glowing. "Uncle Enzo, Uncle Pietro." Nora made chocolate chip pancakes. "Want some?" The two hardened men melt like spring snow. "We would be honored, little one," Pietro says, and something in his voice cracks open, the part of him that remembers his own daughters before the life took that softness away. They eat at the kitchen counter, rain drumming a steady rhythm against glass, and the conversation moves through ordinary things: Emma's school project on California history, the Foundation's new grant program that Nora designed, Luca's decision to legitimize another sector of his business. Nothing in their words hints at the empire of violence that still exists in the background, held at bay by Nora's presence like she is a spell that makes the darkness take a step back. Emma swallows a bite of pancake and asks, "Nora, why do you keep your apartment if you sleep here every night?" Luca's coffee cup stops halfway to his mouth. His shoulders tense just slightly. Nora laughs, a sound like water over smooth stones, and she does not flinch from the question. "That is a very good question, sweetheart." Luca sets down his cup. He reaches across the counter and takes Nora's hand, his fingers rough from a lifetime of holding things that break easily or kill efficiently. Because Nora is independent and strong and does not need anyone. But I am hoping one day she will want to stay anyway. Not because she must, but because she chooses to. Nora meets his eyes. 7 months ago, he said those same words, "Choose. Let me in. Let me be something more than the man who pulled you from the darkness." And she has been watching him ever since, this man who reads bedtime stories to his daughter in Italian and English both, who learned her favorite tea and has it waiting when she arrives at the estate on mornings when the weight of memory feels too heavy to carry alone. Nora squeezes his hand. "I already want to. I am just making you work for it." Emma's face breaks into a grin, pure light. "Does this mean we are a real family?" Luca and Nora answer at exactly the same moment, their voices overlapping. "We already are." The words hang in the kitchen like a truth that has been waiting all along to be spoken aloud. Enzo exchanges a glance with Pietro. They see in this moment what has been building since a bleeding woman walked into an underground poker room at 3:22 in the morning during a summer thunderstorm, her words fragmented but her meaning absolute. "I protected your daughter. I asked for nothing." And everything that man believed about his capacity for change crystallized around that single fact. He was not unbreakable. He could be broken open by grace, by witnessing someone choose to do the right thing when it cost them everything. 1 year has passed since that night. Federal charges were filed against Douglas Hale and Evelyn Blackwell simultaneously. The trials lasted for months. The testimony was brutal, each victim's story a separate knife wound. Nora stood before the court and told the truth, her voice steady, her eyes never leaving the defendants' faces as she described being dragged through a parking garage by men who believed her body was currency. Hale collapsed into sobs during closing arguments, his lawyer offering no defense because none existed. Blackwell wore Chanel to every court appearance, her expression never wavering, her absolute certainty that her money and connections would insulate her from consequences, until the moment the verdict came down and the judge's voice carried through the courtroom like the toll of a bell, guilty on all counts. Recommended sentence is 60 years. Both of them gone now, locked behind federal walls where the darkness they created gets reflected back at them endlessly. But this moment in the kitchen is not about them. It is about the architecture of a new world, built not on violence or domination but on choice. Luca paid off Nora's medical debt through a hospital charity fund, letting her discover it in a letter that arrived 3 weeks after she moved into her own apartment. When she confronted him, he was playing chess with Emma in the estate library, and he smiled at her like a man caught in something true. "Can you prove it was me?" He offered her work managing his legitimate foundation, which grew from her integrity and his resources into something that now provides housing and education for 200 children per year. The salary was real, $75,000, money she earned through her own labor, not charity wrapped in a man's name. And slowly, over 7 months, something shifted between them that had nothing to do with rescue and everything to do with recognition. She saw him show gentleness to his daughter and understand it as a choice, not an accident. He watched her rebuild herself without using his name as a shield and understood it as strength, not rejection. When his brother Marco died in a Nevada prison, she found him staring at nothing in his office and sat beside him in silence. He did not cry. Luca Valenti is not a man who breaks open easily, but his hand found hers, and he held on like she was the only solid thing in a world gone liquid. Over dinner at a quiet restaurant in Santa Monica, with ocean sound moving beneath the city's noise, he finally said the words that had been living in his chest since the moment she appeared, covered in blood, refusing to stop protecting someone else's child. "I love you, Nora." Not as gratitude. Not as debt. As a man who found the one person who could make him believe he was capable of becoming better than his worst deeds. She reached across the table and took his hand. "I have been waiting for you to ask." Emma's pencil scratches against paper as she returns to her homework, unbothered by the adult conversation, secure in the knowledge that both of them are staying. This is what safety looks like to children, not the absence of danger, but the permanent presence of people who choose you. Enzo stands to leave, Pietro following. At the door, Enzo turns back. "Boss, the distribution network expansion moves forward. We will need your approval on." Luca waves his hand. "Handle it. I have something more important." Pietro raises an eyebrow. In 15 years, no business decision has been more important than expansion. Luca looks at Nora, who is watching him with that expression she carries now, the one that says she sees all of him, the violence and the tenderness both, and chooses the man underneath the reputation. He reaches out and pulls her against him, her back against his chest, his arms settling around her like they have been waiting for this position all along. "This is more important," he says quietly. The door closes behind his lieutenants. Rain continues its gentle rhythm. Emma hums while she works. Luca presses his face into Nora's hair, breathing in the scent of lavender shampoo and something that belongs only to her. Nora leans back against him, allowing herself the luxury of being held by someone who would move the world to keep her safe, now that she no longer needs to be kept safe by anyone. She is standing on her own, apartment, career, savings account, therapy for the trauma that still surfaces sometimes in the darkness. But she chooses this. She chooses him. She chooses the family they are building in this kitchen on a Sunday morning while rain falls outside and makes the world feel contained, held, safe. A year ago, Nora Hartley had $34 in her pocket and no future written in any visible future tense. She was sleeping in a car in a city that did not know her name, invisible to a world that had already decided she was nobody. Then she found a little girl who needed protecting, and in protecting her, she found everything she had lost: purpose, meaning, the belief that her choices mattered. Not because a powerful man rescued her, but because she chose to do the right thing when it cost her everything, and he saw that choice for what it truly was: strength. And he built his love on that foundation, steady and real. Family is not always bound by blood but by those who choose to stay when the storm arrives. If this story moved you, if it touched something deep in your heart, hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear that there is hope after despair. Subscribe to our channel for more stories of courage, redemption, and love that defies all odds. Drop a comment and tell us, what would you have done in Nora's place? Would you have protected a stranger's child knowing it could cost you everything? Join our community. Let us talk about the choices that define us. Tomorrow we have another story that will leave you breathless. Until then, remember, sometimes the bravest thing you can do is protect someone who cannot protect themselves, even when you barely have the strength to stand. Thank you for staying with us. We will see you in the next one.